Anna Turley, an emotional day for you.
Yeah, obviously it's a really sad day because Keir's only the third Labour Prime Minister of my lifetime and only the second to win an election from opposition. So of course it was sad to see him outside Downing Street because I think, you know, he's got a huge amount to be proud of. I've been very proud of this government, what we've achieved in just 2 years. And for Keir Starmer himself, what he's done with the Labour Party to turn it around in such a short space of time. I was someone who lost their seat in the 2019 election, was part of the sort of red wall wave that was swept away. And I thought it's going to be a decade before we get another Labour government. And Keir Starmer came in, turned the party around, dealt with things like anti-Semitism, got us electable and put a project to the British people that they overwhelmingly approved. And that's an incredible record and he should be very, very proud of that. So, of course, it's a sad day today to see that come to an end. But, you know, I think he's got a huge record to be proud of and I think he made his speech today with real dignity.
Have you spoken to him today? How's he doing?
Yes, I've seen him. We had a hug, and he's you know, very stoic. He's always put the British people first, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, I was a big supporter, because he's conscious he's still Prime Minister. He's got to navigate through this situation, and he's someone that he's not prone to anything that many of us would fall prey to around sort of bitterness or whatever. He was very, very forward-looking and you know, say he's focused on what else he's still got to do in his time.
But how are the people around him feeling?
I think lots of people feel sad and disappointed because you put your heart and soul into projects. You know, people in Number 10 and around the party work long hours and are very committed, and you couldn't do this job if you didn't believe in the project that you're trying to do and the things you're trying to achieve for the country. And we all know in politics, as I've experienced myself, things can be very short-lived. You never know how long you've got. So you have to make every single day in politics, particularly in government, count. So there are lots of people there who, as I said, have given up their time and effort and their lives and their families to do that, not least the Prime Minister. So, of course, it's a sad time and a reflective time, but a lot to be proud of, as I say.
I mean, the brutality of politics is such that everybody is looking to the future now and welcoming the new MP, Andy Burnham, who's likely to be the new Prime Minister. I mean, is he the Messiah or is he just a naughty boy, as he quipped?
Well, I've known Andy for about 23 years, I think, now.
So definitely a naughty boy, then.
No, and I've always been a big fan, and I supported him in the last leadership election back in, was it 2015? And, you know, I was disappointed when he didn't make it then, and Manchester's gain was Parliament's loss, so I'm delighted to have him back. And I'm really, you know, glad that he's going to put himself forward, and, you know, I think he's got a huge amount to offer. So we look forward to him setting that stall out over the coming days and weeks, and I know he's got the values and the personality to really, you know, to do a brilliant job.
Did you sense euphoria when you spoke to him today, or did you see the weight of the world on his shoulders, knowing the challenges ahead?
I think neither, probably somewhere in between. I think delight to be back in Westminster, back in familiar ground, where, of course, he's had a long and very positive career before. And I think a real warmth from the parliamentary party around him. People were really pleased to see him, to welcome him back. We always enjoy celebrating a by-election win, and to win a thumping one like that defeated Reform was really positive. So there are a lot of people very, you know, pleased to see him, pleased to welcome him back. And in the midst of what, as I said, is a very sad and sorry day, let's hope there's some rays of optimism here going forward for the country.
Well, I mean, it's hard to be optimistic when you look at the challenges ahead, and the challenges haven't changed with the Prime Minister. And what hope does Andy Burnham have of coming up with a plan in just a few weeks when, you know, you had 14 years in opposition to come up with one and you didn't manage that?
Well, of course, the challenges are extremely difficult. We know that we're in a very insecure and very volatile world globally. The financial situation is difficult. We face a lot of policy challenges. But one thing is for sure, I know we're in a far better place now than we were 2 years ago. And whoever comes in after the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, will have a much better legacy to be able to deal with than Keir Starmer himself inherited. So let's see what Andy sets out over the coming weeks or months. But of course, those challenges are huge. But one thing I know for sure is with a Labour Prime Minister, we've got the right values about putting ordinary people first, putting the security and safety of our country first, and making sure that public services work for all of us.
Well, I'll come back to defence in a minute, but I mean, it was interesting. Andy Burnham tweeted today about the importance of stability and seriousness. What do you say to those around him pushing for the fiscal rules to be tweaked?
Well, I'm not going to get into a discussion on that. You know, we've got our manifesto. The fiscal rules are really, really important, and it will be up to him, I think, to do what we did when we came into government 2 years ago. Look at the books, look at the options, think about the things he wants to achieve. That he's come with a very strong legacy in Manchester of what he's seen and delivered there, and I'm looking forward to seeing that those values come through in the decisions and the priorities that he or whoever stands for the Labour Party and wins any potential election will set out.
But you know, there there is a strong argument, isn't there, for stability in the team around him, you know, keeping the Chancellor potentially. Could you see that being a good idea?
All those decisions will be for whoever's the next leader and Prime Minister. You know, I'm not going to get into that, but the priority is, of course, making sure that we continue responsibly in government. We do maintain some sense of security, and that the British people know that we're putting them first and not internal politics. And I think that'll be the priority for anyone putting themselves forward.
I mean, clearly in your role, you know the mind of Labour MPs, and you're very familiar with the kind of mood on the backbenches. I mean, Andy Burnham has said that he's not squeamish about cutting the welfare bill, but will he find, or whoever takes over, let's keep that pretense at the moment. I mean, will they find that MPs are any more willing to look at welfare cuts than they were under Keir Starmer? Because I mean, that was one of the big problems in the Starmer era, wasn't it?
Well, I think sometimes it's seen too simply as we were just going to slash welfare and backbenchers didn't like it. There was a lot of nuance around that. MPs were very thoughtful about the impact of certain decisions and things on their constituents. There were lots of different things up for discussion. So I think this is a much more complex discussion and debate to be had. We've got the Timms review, you know, coming through. I'm sure whoever's leader and Prime Minister will look at all of that together with the Secretary of State to make that assessment, because I think it's an easy caricature to say we've got to cut welfare, Labour MPs won't like it. Labour MPs want to get people back into work, particularly young people. They want people to have jobs and opportunity, but they also want to make sure that people can survive and can get by, and we have a welfare state that supports everybody. So I know they'll be making those nuanced arguments as we go forward.
But do you think MPs are shifting on that, or are on a journey on welfare cuts?
It's too early to say. I think, you know, we've got a lot of thinking to do and working out. We've learnt the lessons from, I think, some of the handling, some of the communications of what happened before. And I think we all know there's a seriousness and a determination to get this right, not just because of fiscal responsibility, but crucially to make sure that we give hope and opportunity to people in our constituencies.
How divided is the party now? How difficult is it going to be for whoever succeeds Keir Starmer to unify the party?
I think that's always going to be a challenge when you've got a big parliamentary party of 400 people, all with different constituencies, different views, different priorities. But whoever comes in will recognise that we've got a huge amount of shared values. We sign up to the Labour Party values of fairness, of equality, of social justice, and we have a manifesto that we're elected on. So, of course, it will be their job to along with all of us, we all have a responsibility to pull together as a team to think about the fact that we're in government, not in opposition, and to make sure we put the public first, and to make sure that we go forward as one Labour family supporting whoever is the next Prime Minister.
Can you see Keir Starmer being offered a job in government?
I'm not going to make any comment on that, I'm afraid, Cathy. That's for whoever has to make those decisions.
But has he got more to contribute to public service?
Well, hugely, absolutely, yeah. Keir has an enormous amount to contribute to public life, and I feel sad that he didn't have any more time or enough time to really continue to deliver that, and I'll always feel that. But I look forward to seeing him make a contribution in many other ways, I know.
You think he'll stay as an MP?
I don't know. I'm not going to possibly comment on that.
Right. I mean, you're in charge of what happens next. I know it's still very fluid, but there is a world, isn't there, where there are no challengers. There doesn't need to be a formal contest because no one else has come forward. And then, you know, Andy Burnham could, in theory, be Prime Minister in a matter of days, couldn't he?
Well, there's the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party will set out the timetable. They're responsible for that, and they're various elected bodies. We have a sort of democratic system, so the National Executive Committee will make those decisions on the timetable. The Prime Minister's already set out today that the 9th of July will open for nominations and will close before the recess, so we'll look to see who comes forward. Labour MPs will have to have 81 nominations, so we'll see who comes forward and puts themselves forward for nominations after the 9th.
But if no one does come forward, then, you know, that whole process could be expedited.
I'm not going to speculate on that. As I said, the timetable is for the NEC.
What's to stop Keir Starmer, though, announcing a whole load of policies that tie the hands of his successor? For example, he could, you know, do a massive deal on defence, a defence investment plan, you know, fully funded, as John Healey asked for and didn't get. You know, and that then ties the hands of Andy Burnham.
Well, Keir Starmer is still our Prime Minister, so he has the absolute right and the mandate to make those decisions on behalf of the British people, and will do that, I'm sure, till his very last day. And you know, it's for all of us to work and support him in that mission. He is the elected Prime Minister, and but I know also he will be having conversations. He's responsible, and he recognises that, you know, we are in government and we have a responsibility for a stable transition.
Has he spoken to Andy Burnham yet?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
But would it be wise for him to consult Andy Burnham on some of the big policy announcements he's yet to make on defence and Europe and so on?
Well, again, I'm not going to speculate because we haven't got any nominations in yet, so the process hasn't started. So those decisions will take place whenever the timing is right, I'm sure.
Let's just step back a minute. You know, I know you've got to assume that there may be other people come forward, but so far Wes Streeting has said he won't be standing, and it looks like it could well be Andy Burnham. What mandate does he have? I mean, when Liz Truss went, he called for a general election. There's going to be a real pressure, isn't there, for him to test his policies and his vision with the public?
I'm sure there'll be lots of people, and Nigel Farage and others have already tried to jump on that and to push for that. But the reality is we were elected with a manifesto in the general election of 2024 with a 5-year term. The Labour team is here to deliver that, and I know Andy will be very mindful of that, or whoever is the next leader will be mindful of that.
But he's already signalled significant departures from that manifesto, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, and let's say he will test those ideas, I'm sure, in the days and weeks coming with the British public and with parliamentarians. We have, as I said, over 400 members of Parliament elected to represent their constituents who will be part of this conversation. So I'm sure all those discussions will be taking place.
But would a contest be advisable, given that he would then be able to test his views and people would be able to see how he performs?
I think the last thing we want is more disruption of another general election. We've had so many in the last few years. We've had so much turmoil. We need to just have a clear mandate. It's taken 2 years for some of the changes that we've started to implement as a Labour government to start to come through, to start to be felt. If we continually have this kind of chop and change, we've got a government with a 5-year mandate, and I think it's really important that we're allowed to continue to do that.
But isn't he then obliged to stick to the manifesto that Labour was elected on?
He will have those, whoever's the leader will have those conversations with those discussions with the elected parliamentary Labour Party and parliamentarians. We have a parliamentary democracy, so those discussions and debates will be tested in Parliament, which is representative of all the people.
Do you think it would actually help him, though, if there was a formal leadership contest, because it would allow him to road test some of his ideas?
Well, we'll see who comes forward. As I said, we don't know if other people will put themselves forward, and whoever is putting themselves forward will have to put those ideas and policies to the Labour membership to make their case.
So we're looking at the 7th Prime Minister in a decade. Is the country fast becoming ungovernable?
I think we are in really turbulent and difficult times. I think sometimes the expectations of parliamentarians, of prime ministers and of people are sometimes just set too high. And I think it's a very difficult challenge for people to step forward in public life. We are looking for candidates in local elections, and it's very hard, particularly for women, to want to put themselves forward because of the expectations, because of the levels of abuse that people have to go through. And I think we forget very easily when we see politicians on TV that they're human beings with families. A colleague of mine has had a serious attack on their home in recent days. We've seen the attack that was on the Prime Minister's family home. These are really difficult and turbulent times, and I think it's incumbent on all of us, whether that's parliamentarians, politicians, journalists, commentators, people in the media, everyone at home, everyone sitting behind a screen, to think about what kind of country we want to be, to give people time, to give people the opportunity to make mistakes, to perhaps get things wrong, to road test, to change their mind, but to be clear about the sort of values. And accountability and scrutiny is really, really important. But I think sometimes we do have unrealistic expectations of what we expect our politicians to be able to deliver in a very, very instant kind of gratification world that we live in now with social media.
You talk about politicians being human beings. You saw the human being, the Prime Minister, reflecting on his family, his job as a husband, as a father. What went through your mind when you saw that?
Keir is an incredibly decent man and has put himself forward, worked incredibly hard, sacrificed many things like many politicians do to serve his country and to put the British nation, the United Kingdom, at the forefront of every decision that he made. And I think that takes its toll on people, and I think that's hard to see when it's someone that you really value and rate and respect. So I think, it's incredibly challenging, but I hope that he will have the time to reflect on incredible achievements in the last 2 years, stabilising the economy, giving the best workers' rights that we've had in a generation, incredible things for young people in schools with breakfast clubs and so so on. Nationalising British Steel, which for a community like mine in Redcar could have saved thousands of jobs 10 years ago. You know, he's got a huge legacy, lifting more children out of poverty than any previous government.
We had to be dragged kicking and screaming to do that.
I'm not sure that's true. I had those conversations with him. It's easy for people to characterise that. We couldn't do it straight away when we came in because of the financial situation. But I know Keir was passionate about that, and he really, really wanted to do that. I had those conversations. So I think that is his legacy, and he should be incredibly proud of that, along with also the social media ban, which I think will have a huge impact on many young people's lives. So I hope when he reflects on the incredible amount he's achieved in 2 years, he's extremely proud of what he was able to do.
We never really knew what Starmerism was. Do you know what Burnhamism is?
I think it's often too easy to have kind of sweeping isms, and that way I think sometimes we can get ourselves in kind of too rigid definitions and not allow room for nuance. You know, we have Labour values and they're very clear, and they're on our manifesto, and they're, you know, run throughout all of our veins. And so I'm looking forward to seeing Andy putting those values that I've seen him deliver, not just in Parliament but also in Manchester throughout his career, into action. Or, as I said, whoever puts themselves forward, I know will share the kinds of values and priorities that we have in the Labour Party.
But, you know, Andy's chopped and changed throughout his career. Do you know what he stands for now?
Well, he's going to set that out in the coming weeks or months. I'm not going to set his policy agenda or his manifesto out for him here now, but yeah, I look forward to seeing that. His record speaks for itself.
Anna Turley, thanks very much.
Thank you.